We're surrounded by stuff, our phones, our cars, the buildings we work in. But have you ever really stopped to think about what it truly costs to make them? And I don't just mean the price tag. I'm talking about the hidden cost, this delicate balancing act between making a profit and, well, the impact on our planet. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and look at this very challenge. So this brings us to the big question, right? The one that every manufacturer is grappling with today. On one side, you've got this relentless pressure to be profitable. But on the other, there's this growing demand from all of us to be environmentally responsible. So is it even possible to do both at the same time? It really feels like a paradox, a choice you have to make between two totally opposite forces. And this leads us to what you could call the two-sided squeeze. It is the daily reality for modern industry, being pulled in two different directions all at once. Let's break down what that squeeze actually looks and feels like. This really lays out the conflict perfectly. On the economic side, it's all about survival. You got to cut costs, you got to boost efficiency, and you have to stay competitive or you're out of the game. But then on the environmental side, the pressures are just as intense. You've got to comply with regulations, conserve precious resources like water and energy, and you've got to meet the demands of a market that more and more wants sustainable products. Juggling all of that is the core challenge. So how in the world do companies even begin to manage this? Well, traditionally, they've used two very different sets of tools to measure these two very different pressures. Kind of like having two different toolboxes for the same job. First up, you have the money tool. It's called Life Cycle Cost Analysis, or LCCA. Think of this as the ultimate accountant's view of the world. It calculates every single penny a product is going to cost, from the initial factory investment through all the years of operation and maintenance, all the way to what it costs to get rid of it at the very end. It is purely 100% about the bottom line. And then on the other side, you've got the green tool, Environmental Assessment, or EA. Now, this looks at the exact same life cycle from cradle to grave, but it measures a completely different metric, the total environmental footprint. It asks questions like, how much energy did this thing consume? What was its carbon footprint? What kind of impact did making it have on our natural resources? Okay, so here's the crucial point. When you use these powerful tools separately in their own little silos, you get a completely divided view. The finance team sees only the dollar signs, and the sustainability team sees only the environmental impact. They're looking at the exact same product, but they're basically speaking two different languages. And that leads to an incomplete picture and, a lot of the time, really conflicting decisions. But what if you could change that? What if you could just stop looking at the problem through two separate lenses and instead create one single, unified view of the whole thing? The solution is actually surprisingly simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Just stop treating them as separate issues. Instead, you integrate the life cycle cost analysis and the environmental assessment into a single cohesive framework. This is how you finally start to see the full story, all at once. And here's what that integrated view actually looks like. All of a sudden, you're not just seeing manufacturing costs over here in a spreadsheet. You're seeing exactly how labor costs connect to energy use, and how that energy use directly contributes to the carbon footprint. You get a product's true profile, where every single piece of the puzzle, both economic and environmental, is connected. And the benefits of this are just huge. I mean, this isn't just about ticking a sustainability box anymore. It's about making fundamentally smarter business decisions. Companies can now properly balance those tough trade-offs, finding ways to optimize resources that save both money and the planet. It's a genuine triple win. It's good for the business, it's good for the customer, and it's good for the environment. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but does it actually work out there in the real world? Let's move from the concept to the factory floor and see how this integration actually plays out in a few different industries. And this is where it gets really interesting. When researchers applied this integrated view, they uncovered some fascinating connections. For instance, in making aviation parts, they found the biggest cost with labor, but the biggest environmental problem was the huge amount of energy used during manufacturing. For building materials, the most expensive materials were also the ones with the highest carbon footprints. And in 3D printing, the cost of equipment repairs was directly tied to how much energy it was using. Seeing both sides at once reveals the true hotspots, the places where a single improvement can have the biggest impact on both your wallet and the planet. And all of these real-world examples point to one powerful conclusion, a new way of thinking that's really taking hold in manufacturing. The old idea that you can separate your financial health from your environmental health, that's just becoming obsolete. The two are fundamentally linked. They're two sides of the same coin. So, what does this all mean for the future? Well, this integrated way of thinking is paving the way for a much smarter and a much, much greener way of making pretty much everything. Now, of course, this isn't a perfect crystal ball. The world is full of uncertainty. Markets go up and down, new technologies pop up out of nowhere. But the solution is to fight that uncertainty with data. Advanced tools can now run thousands of what-if scenarios to make these analyses way more robust. And artificial intelligence is even being used to find cost-saving and eco-friendly solutions that a human might never even spot. This kind of thinking is already building the next frontier of manufacturing. Imagine smart factories that use real-time sensor data to constantly adjust for both cost and impact. Picture products that are designed from day one to be part of a circular economy, where absolutely nothing is wasted. And, maybe most importantly, it's about creating a new level of transparency so that we, as consumers, can finally understand the true story behind the products we choose to buy. So, I'll just leave you with this final thought. The next time you pick something up, whether it's a new phone or even just a simple cup of coffee, ask yourself this question: what was its true cost? Because knowing the answer, well, that's the first step toward a world where we manufacture things better, for everyone.